This is Ketora Denise Feazell, a stunning 28-year-old model and owner of a boutique called Ketora Echelon Clothing. She pulled into her boyfriend's driveway that fateful afternoon. She had just returned from Miami and was dropping off some items at Marvin Simmons' house, a simple errand that should have taken minutes. She couldn't have known that behind that door waited not just Marvin, but another woman, his other girlfriend, the mother of his child. Marvin shot her brutally, 7 shots on a lady who dropped by to drop off something on March 7, 2022 in Las Vegas, and that marked the end of her life. By the time emergency services arrived, it was too late. Ketora Feazell, with her bright smile and entrepreneurial dreams, lay motionless in the driveway of the man she loved, the man who had just pulled the trigger. The story of Ketora's final moments reveals the volatile nature of jealousy when it collides with deception. This wasn't just a crime of passion. It wasn't just a love triangle gone wrong. It was the deadly consequence of secrets kept, boundaries crossed, and emotions unleashed without restraint. This is Crazy Dark Files. We have more crazy cases to bring to light. Subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an exposed case. Before she became a headline, Ketora Denise Feazell was a force of nature. At 28, she had already built what many spend decades chasing, a name for herself in the competitive modeling industry and her own thriving boutique business. Born with natural beauty and an entrepreneurial spirit, Ketora didn't just dream of success, she crafted it with her own hands. Her boutique became a local fashion destination, where her eye for style transformed customers and reflected her distinctive taste. Each piece in her collection told a story, much like the woman who selected them. Ketora could walk into a room and immediately light it up, recalled a close friend who had known her since high school. She had this magnetic energy that drew people to her. When she talked about her business plans, you couldn't help but believe in her vision. That vision extended beyond retail. Ketora's modeling portfolio showcased her versatility, from commercial work to fashion editorials. She approached each photo shoot with professionalism that photographers and clients consistently praised. Her Instagram page, filled with striking poses and behind-the-scenes glimpses of boutique life. But numbers and achievements only tell part of Ketora's story. Those who knew her spoke of her generosity, how she would mentor younger models navigating the industry, offering advice and opportunities when she could. They mentioned her laugh, loud and uninhibited, that would bubble up from deep within her. They described her determination, how she would work late into the night on business plans, refusing to cut corners or take shortcuts. That girl was going places, her former manager stated. She understood that success required sacrifice, and she was willing to put in those hours. She had goals written down, 5-year plans, 10-year plans. Ketora wasn't just dreaming, she was building. Those plans included expanding her boutique to a second location, pursuing larger modeling contracts, and eventually launching her own clothing line. Friends recall her sketching designs during lunch breaks and researching manufacturers in her spare time. Her phone contained notes about color palettes and fabric options, digital breadcrumbs of a future that would never materialize. What makes Ketora's story particularly heartbreaking is the contrast between where she was headed and where her journey abruptly ended. The woman who meticulously planned her future couldn't have anticipated its sudden conclusion in her boyfriend's driveway. The boutique she built with such care now sits as a memorial to its owner. The modeling contracts she was negotiating remain unsigned. The clothing line exists only in sketches and notes. A life of potential, ambition, and brightness extinguished in seconds by someone who claimed to love her. Ketora first met Marvin Simmons at a networking event for local entrepreneurs in Las Vegas. He approached her with confidence, introducing himself as a real estate investor with several properties across the city. Their initial conversation lasted hours, flowing from business strategies to personal aspirations. By the end of the night, they had exchanged numbers and a promise to meet again. "She called me that same night," Ketora's closest friend told reporters. She was excited about him in a way I hadn't seen before. She kept saying he understood her ambition, that he wasn't intimidated by her success like other guys had been. Their first date set the tone for their relationship. Dinner at an exclusive restaurant, followed by a private tour of a luxury property Marvin claimed to be developing. He showered her with attention and admiration, positioning himself as both a romantic interest and a business mentor. For Ketora, who had struggled to find partners who respected her career focus, this combination proved irresistible. Within weeks they were inseparable. Marvin appeared at her boutique with lunch, sent extravagant flower arrangements, and introduced her to his circle of influential friends. On social media, Ketora shared glimpses of their relationship, romantic dinners, weekend getaways, and affectionate moments that painted the picture of a perfect partnership. But beneath this glossy surface, subtle warning signs emerged. Marvin's schedule was unpredictable, with sudden cancellations and unexplained absences. He insisted on meeting at his place rather than hers, claiming his home office required his presence. When Ketora questioned these patterns, he deflected with grand gestures or business explanations too complex to easily challenge. "Always had an answer for everything," noted a colleague who witnessed their relationship develop. If she asked why he couldn't attend an important event with her, he'd counter with a story about a deal that needed his attention, then follow up with an expensive gift the next day. It was like he had a playbook for keeping her satisfied without actually being present. 6 months into their relationship, Ketora began noticing inconsistencies in Marvin's stories. Names mentioned, then forgotten. Business partners who changed with each retelling. Properties that seemed to exist only in conversation. When she pressed for clarity, their arguments intensified, often ending with Marvin leaving abruptly, only to return hours later with apologies and promises. What Ketora didn't know, what would have changed everything had she discovered it, was that Marvin's disappearing acts often led to another home across town, another woman, another life. While building his relationship with Ketora, Marvin maintained a long-term connection with a woman who had recently given birth to his child. This relationship predated his meeting with Ketora by several years, creating a complex web of loyalties and lies that Marvin navigated with calculated precision. "He compartmentalized his life completely," explained an acquaintance, familiar with both relationships. With his baby's mother, he played the role of committed family man, handling responsibilities and making future plans. With Ketora, he was the ambitious entrepreneur and passionate lover. He kept these worlds so separate that neither woman had reason to suspect the other existed. This double life required constant vigilance. Marvin maintained 2 phones, created elaborate cover stories, and established strict boundaries around when each woman could contact him. He scheduled his time with military precision, ensuring his paths never crossed and his stories remained consistent within each relationship. For months, this dangerous balance held, but as Ketora grew more integrated into his life, demanding more of his time and greater transparency, the walls between his 2 worlds began to thin. Mutual acquaintances occasionally made confusing references. Business associates sometimes mentioned seeing him at places he claimed not to have visited. Small inconsistencies accumulated like hairline cracks in a foundation. The pressure mounted from both sides. His child's mother wanted more commitment, more family time, more security. Ketora wanted more honesty, more inclusion in his life, more future planning. Marvin found himself constantly adjusting his stories, expanding his lies, and managing increasingly complex expectations. By early 2022, the situation had become unsustainable. Ketora Denise Feazell had begun voicing doubts about her relationship with Marvin Simmons. The tension between them was growing, and cracks were beginning to show in the carefully constructed double life Marvin had been leading. On one side, there was Ketora, a successful model and entrepreneur who believed she was building a future with him. On the other, the mother of his child, who reportedly believed she was in an exclusive relationship with Marvin. The elaborate web of deception Marvin had spun was unraveling, and it was only a matter of time before the truth came to light. Something would have to give. someone would have to lose. The question was no longer if his double life would be exposed, but when and at what cost to those involved. The weekend trip to Miami in March 2022 would prove to be the tipping point. What Marvin likely intended as a way to smooth over the growing tension between him and Ketora instead became the catalyst for the events that would lead to tragedy. The invitation came suddenly, a weekend getaway to Miami that Marvin presented as a chance to reconnect. After weeks of strain and emotional distance, Ketora saw it as an opportunity to salvage their relationship. She cleared her schedule, arranged for a temporary manager at her boutique, and packed her bags with a mixture of hope and unease. "She called me the night before they left," her sister later told investigators. She said this trip would determine everything, whether they stayed together or ended things for good. She was nervous but hopeful. She wanted answers. They arrived in Miami on Friday afternoon, checking into a luxury oceanfront hotel. On the surface, it seemed like the perfect romantic getaway, but beneath the surface, the tension between them was obvious. Saturday brought a yacht excursion along the coast, an outing that masked the growing strain. Fellow passengers later recalled seeing the couple arguing quietly at the bow of the yacht, their body language tense despite their attempts to appear composed. At one point, Ketora stepped away to take photos of the skyline, while Marvin spent nearly 20 minutes on his phone, speaking in hushed tones with his back turned to the group. That evening, security cameras captured Ketora leaving the hotel alone around 8 p.m. She returned 3 hours later carrying shopping bags. During those hours, she walked through Miami's shopping district, making several phone calls to close friends. In one voicemail recovered after her death, she can be heard saying, "I found something on his phone. I don't even know who he is anymore." What exactly Ketora discovered remains unclear, but it was enough to change the course of the trip and their relationship. The items she purchased that night, which she would later pack to return to Marvin, offer some clues. Among them was a silver picture frame still in its bag. Whether it was meant as a gesture to force a conversation about their future or as a confrontational symbol of what she had uncovered, its significance would become clear in the days to come. Sunday morning brought the breaking point. Hotel guests in neighboring rooms reported hearing a loud argument around 9 a.m. By 11 a.m., Ketora had checked out of the hotel alone, leaving Marvin behind. She changed her flight to an earlier departure and landed in Las Vegas by mid-afternoon, while Marvin remained in Miami. The items she took with her, hastily packed into a designer bag, were not random. They included the new picture frame and a pair of shoes. Days after her flight home, Ketora sent a series of text messages to Marvin. Her words were direct and final. "I know everything now. I'm returning your things. After that, we're done. You can't live two lives forever." Marvin's responses grew increasingly desperate. "Let me explain later. You don't understand the situation. Don't do anything until we talk. Where are you going with my stuff?" As Ketora's plane touched down in Las Vegas, her phone lit up with a final exchange of messages. "I'm dropping everything at your house and then you'll never see me again," she typed, her decision made. Marvin's response came instantly. "Don't come to the house. I'm serious." Her reply was brief and resolute. "Too late. Already on my way." She slipped her phone into her purse, grabbed her bag of returned items, and headed for the exit. The afternoon sun hit her face as she stepped outside her apartment. March 7th, 2022, began as an ordinary Monday in Las Vegas. The temperature reached 78 degrees by noon, with clear skies and a gentle breeze, perfect weather that gave no hint of the violence about to unfold. According to reports, Ketora arrived at the house and knocked on the door. Inside, Marvin's other girlfriend, who was the mother of his child, was present. She later told police that Marvin had warned her not to open the door if Ketora showed up. The woman, who believed she was Marvin's only partner, was reportedly confused and shocked by the situation. When no one answered the door, Ketora became increasingly frustrated. She knocked more insistently and attempted to call Marvin, but her calls went unanswered. Witnesses later reported hearing raised voices and seeing Ketora pacing outside the house, visibly upset. At some point, Marvin arrived at the scene. Witnesses described a heated argument between the two in the driveway. The confrontation escalated quickly, and in a moment of violence, Marvin pulled out a handgun and shot Ketora. As Ketora and her sisters tried to leave, multiple gunshots shattered the night, with one bullet hitting Ketora in the chest. The man she once trusted became the source of a devastating tragedy that would change her family's lives forever. Neighbors, alarmed by the gunshots, called 911, and Marvin remained at the scene, standing near Ketora's body with the gun in his hand. When police arrived minutes later, he surrendered without resistance, placing the weapon on the ground and raising his hands. Paramedics pronounced Ketora dead at the scene. Inside the house, police found Marvin's other girlfriend in a state of shock, holding their infant child. She reportedly told officers that she had no knowledge of Ketora's existence until that day. "I didn't know," she repeated, according to one officer's report. She too was a victim of Marvin's deception. The investigation moved quickly. Police recovered text messages and phone records that documented Marvin's relationship with Ketora and the events leading up to the shooting. Neighbors' security cameras captured parts of the confrontation, providing crucial evidence for the case. Marvin Simmons was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors argued that the killing was premeditated, pointing to the fact that Marvin had brought a loaded weapon to the confrontation. They contended that he acted out of fear that Ketora would expose his double life. The case drew significant public attention, particularly in Las Vegas's modeling and entrepreneurial communities, where Ketora was a respected figure. Friends and colleagues described her as talented, driven, and generous. A memorial of flowers and photographs soon appeared outside her boutique, a testament to the impact she had on those who knew her. For Ketora's family, the tragedy was compounded by the revelations about her relationship. "We knew she was seeing someone," her mother told reporters, "but she never brought him home. Now we understand why." The trial of Marvin Simmons began months later. Prosecutors presented a strong case, supported by text messages, phone records, and security footage. They argued that Marvin's actions were deliberate and calculated, driven by his desire to silence Ketora before she could reveal the truth about his double life. The defense attempted to portray the shooting as a moment of emotional distress, claiming that Marvin acted impulsively during a heated argument. However, the jury was unconvinced. After just a few hours of deliberation, they returned a guilty verdict on the charge of first-degree murder with use of a deadly weapon. At sentencing, the judge addressed Marvin directly. "Your lies and deception created this situation, and when confronted with the truth, you chose violence. Ms. Feazell's only crime was discovering who you really were." The tragic death of Ketora Denise Feazell serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of domestic violence and deception. Her family and friends continue to honor her memory, remembering her as a bright and ambitious young woman whose life was cut short far too soon. The court imposed a sentence of life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 20 years, the maximum penalty under Nevada law. Legal experts noted the case represented a textbook example of domestic homicide motivated by control. When abusers lose control of the narrative, they often escalate to violence, explained a prominent criminologist. What makes this case unusual is not the pattern, but how clearly documented each step of that pattern was. For the families involved, the verdict brought legal closure but little comfort. As Ketora's father told reporters after sentencing, "Justice doesn't bring her back. It doesn't rebuild what he destroyed." The case of Marvin Simmons and Ketora Feazell offers a disturbing glimpse into the psychology of deception and violence in intimate relationships. Love triangles become dangerous when they involve someone who views relationships as possessions rather than partnerships. For such individuals, the threat of exposure isn't just embarrassing, it represents a complete loss of control and status. Ketora's story serves as a powerful reminder that relationship violence rarely occurs without warning. Recognizing dangerous patterns early can save lives, but it requires understanding the subtle signs that often precede physical violence. Control mechanisms are typically the first indicators. These include monitoring movements, demanding constant check-ins, isolating partners from friends and family, and making excessive demands for proof of loyalty. In Ketora's relationship with Marvin, his insistence on controlling their meeting locations was an early sign of his need to maintain strict boundaries between his two lives. Information control represents another critical warning sign. Healthy relationships thrive on openness, while potentially dangerous ones involve significant secrecy. When a partner is vague about their whereabouts, reluctant to introduce you to friends or family, or becomes defensive when asked basic questions about their life, these behaviors warrant attention. On a broader scale, Ketora's story highlights the need for societal change in how we discuss and address relationship violence. By treating domestic homicide as a predictable and preventable crime rather than a private tragedy, communities can develop more effective intervention strategies. Education about healthy relationships must begin early, teaching young people to recognize the difference between love and control, passion and possession, privacy and secrecy. Only through such fundamental shifts in understanding can we hope to prevent future tragedies like Ketora's. Today, Ketora Denise Feazell's boutique operates under new ownership, but her influence remains visible throughout. A small memorial plaque near the entrance bears her photograph and the words she often shared with aspiring models. Own your power, know your worth. Her parents have become advocates for relationship safety, speaking at community events and schools about the warning signs they wish they had recognized. "We can't bring our daughter back," her father explains, "but we might help someone else's daughter recognize danger before it's too late." The fashion community in Las Vegas holds an annual showcase featuring designs inspired by Ketora's bold aesthetic, with proceeds supporting domestic violence prevention programs. Models who worked with her speak of her kindness and determination, qualities that continue to inspire those following in her footsteps. "There were 2 victims that day," she told a support group recently. "One died in the driveway and one survived to tell the story. I speak for both of us now." The house where Ketora's life ended has new occupants who know nothing of its history. The driveway where she fell has been repaved, the physical evidence of tragedy erased. For every Ketora whose story ends in headlines, countless others face similar dangers in silence. Their safety depends on our collective willingness to recognize warning signs, offer support without judgment, and create communities where seeking help is seen as strength rather than weakness. What do you think could have prevented this tragedy? Share your thoughts below and subscribe to Crazy Dark Files for more true crime stories that might just save a life. Your comment could be the insight someone needs to recognize danger in their own situation.